Hello again, watch friends. Welcome back. For the second half of the 1970s and into the early 1980s, I wore these two Seiko quartz watches almost exclusively. I didn't know much about watches at the time, but I knew Seiko was a good brand, and since I wore a suit and tie to the office, these two watches worked out very well. As you can see, I haven't worn them for quite a while, but you can see that they also got a lot of use, and very, very thin watches, quartz, bracelet was sort of dressy, and that's what I wore. And then about 1984, a friend of mine at work had this watch, this Seiko digital LCD watch, and I thought, wow, this is a cool watch, and I wanted to get one. So being 1984, there was no internet, there were no stores that carried what were basically Japanese watches at the time. So being close to New York City and going there occasionally, I went to where any budding electronics enthusiast would go, 42nd Street. I think if I remember correctly, I went to 3 or 4 different electronic stores in New York, and I finally found this watch. And again, you can see that it's been worn. The bracelet is not really much to speak of. It's nice enough, and it's light enough. The watch really is quite light on your wrist, but I liked it very much. I still wear it occasionally. I just like the aesthetic of this digital watch. The next watch that I came about was in the early 1990s. This is an Alba digital LCD, as you can see. Alba is a brand that a Seiko brand apparently, sold mostly I think in Europe and maybe Asia, but this too is a very nice aesthetic. Just like the previous watch, it's got time, it's got a stopwatch function, an alarm, but pretty basic. In the late 1990s, I purchased this watch. This is a Timex data link. Timex worked with Microsoft with some software, and this was back, this was 17 years ago, 20 years ago, right, basically. I think this was mid to late 90s. Back when we didn't have LCD monitors with our computers, we had CRTs. And because of the way the CRT worked, just like a TV with scan lines, you would, with a supplied program that Microsoft created, you would put in contact information, appointments for your calendar, stuff like that. And then this little piece up here, you would hold the watch against the CRT, tell the computer to have it update, and then this watch would read the data from the computer via the CRT, and it would update. This watch no longer works that way because it's pretty hard to find a CRT anymore, and besides, the software was even pre-Windows 95 days. But still kind of a cool watch. I wear it once in a while. I put it on a nice leather strap. I think it really looks kind of nice in a retro sort of way. And these came in all different colors. You can find them on eBay. They still work, but no longer with the synchronizing function with the computer. Then I entered the Casio digital era. Now, as most of you know, this is the Casio F91w, the ubiquitous Very inexpensive. I think this is about $12 now. Almost indestructible. Battery life about 4 or 5 years, maybe even more. And a little on the small side, but it's really an entry-level, high-quality, mass-produced digital LCD watch. You can see if I put it on my wrist, it's really kind of small. Maybe good for a child, or maybe a woman, or even a man with a smaller wrist. But again, it's got the basic functions. It's got alarm, basic time, date, day, and chronograph. These things, I think every watch collector should have one of these because, first of all, they're so inexpensive and they're kind of fun to play with. The next one I got, and actually this one I got, I think in the mid 2000s. This one is the W201-1AV. Again, it's a chronograph. Got the day, the date, month and date and day, time, stopwatch. Got this cool little thing here where the seconds count down in the time mode, as you can see. Start over again. They go 1 through 10, and then they start over again. This one is a little bit larger than the F91W, excuse me. You can see it's a little bit larger. And this one I wore on many trips, on vacations and whatnot. Again, this was 10 years ago plus. I didn't know much about watches, but that was cool, and it was inexpensive. I happened to put this one, again, lightweight. I put it on a NATO because I just thought that was a cool look. And you might know that somewhere in the 1990s, Seiko pretty much ceded their digital LCD market to Casio for whatever reason. So very hard come the turn of the century to find a Seiko digital LCD watch, but Casio's got quite a few. The next one is the Casio AE1200WH-1A. This is the world time, and this one also is inexpensive. I think this one is $15. A little bit larger again. This case is a little bit thicker. Got the plastic or the resin strap, but kind of a cool look. And you can date, day, alarms. I think it has 5 alarms, more than I'll ever need. The second hands over here is a little bit difficult to read, at least without my glasses for me. But you can see it's got the day, the month, and the date, well, time, chronograph. So this is kind of cool. But the coolest watches of all, I think, are the current ones, are the G-Shocks. And I never owned a G-Shock, and it wasn't until I saw my good friend Random Rob, some of his videos. He's really into G-Shocks, very knowledgeable about G-Shocks. I recommend that you go to his YouTube channel to learn all about it. And I bought one. I thought, wow, this is really nice. I love the way the contrast with the information with the gray background. It's got an illumination. This one is a world time. You can see that it's set for Paris right now. PR is Paris, I believe. And it's got 4 or 5 alarms, chronograph, day, date, time. And one of the coolest things about this, I'm not going to go through all the functions, but it's got a countdown timer as well. That's pretty cool. There we go. One of the coolest things is this is an atomic watch. In other words, it receives a radio signal from 5 or 6 different places around the world that send out atomic time signals. In the United States, I think there's one outside of Denver, Colorado. I think it might even be the Naval Observatory. In any case, every night between I think midnight and 3 a.m. it sends out a signal. This watch picks it up and it sets the time according to that. So that's pretty cool. So it always gets accurate time. It even tells you that it got the signal, and or you can ask it to get to go out and get the signal manually. Although the signal works better at nighttime than during the day. So this is really a nice watch. I wore this on a recent vacation to Spain, and I used the world time. Excuse me, I used the second time zone when I was over in Europe. Just a nice watch. Got the plastic resin strap, and then the most recent acquisition is the and by the way, this G-Shock is the GWM 5610-1. I think it costs about $90 on Amazon. The next one, and the last G-Shock I have, is the GWM 5610-BC-15F, and you can see it's inverse. So instead of dark letters on a gray background, it's light letters on a dark background. So this too is also an atomic watch. It goes out and gets the time overnight from the atomic clock in Denver. But the real selling point on this one is the bracelet. This thing has the famous Casio bracelet that is really high quality. I mean, a lot of people go out and buy these bracelets and put these bracelets on less expensive versions of G-Shocks. In fact, that's what I plan to do. I plan to take the bracelet off of this inverse one. I don't really care for the inverse. I find it a little hard to see sometimes in daylight. So I'll take the bracelet off the inverse version of the watch and put it on this one. Whoops. Put it on this one, which I like very much. So this watch will have this bracelet, and I'll be a very happy guy. So those are that's sort of a journey for me from going from my very first digital watch, which was the Seiko, to my current digital watch, which is the Casio G-Shock. So I hope you liked this video. Maybe you learned something. Maybe gave you some ideas, like maybe you should have a G-Shock too. And by the way, the inverse G-Shock is about $190. So you're paying roughly $100 for the bracelet. In fact, you can buy the bracelet on eBay or other places for about $90 to $100. Maybe a little bit less if you're lucky. You can get G-Shocks that are less expensive. You get G-Shocks in the, I think, $40 or $50 price range, but they won't have the atomic time function that this one has. So that's my story on digital LCD watches. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.